Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30 p.m. on Monday, July 13th, 2026. My name is Kelly Lang. I'm the Vice President, and I'll be chairing the meeting tonight in the absence of President Mr. Zweigert, who is absent and excused from tonight's meeting. Joe Pickler and Dr. Temez are also absent and excused. However, we will proceed with a quorum. This is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors of the Education Service Center and on the district's website. It was also sent to the West Bend Community Memorial Library, the Daily News, WRYU, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I will pause here to ask Superintendent Wimmer to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Please rise and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I move to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is the public participation. I see none, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which is our consent agenda. The items below include minutes of the June 22nd, 2026 regular board meeting, contracts, which are I have 4 contracts to approve tonight, 6 resignations, 0 retirements, the Findorf AIA contract and field personnel labor rate contract amendments, moving services contract, the We Energies easement for Silverbrook, Cooperative Educational Services Agency, Contract on Demand Paraprofessional Training, Lifetime Access, the 26-27 Student and Family Handbook, 26-27 Notice of Academic Standards, the 26-27 Curriculum Cycle, the 26-27 Assessment Calendar, the 26-27 At-Risk Plan, and the 25-26 Law Enforcement Statistics Report, as well as disbursements posted to July 4th, 2026. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to our report section. If I can have Tina Van Roo, Student Data and Assessment Coordinator, who will present the 25-26 end-of-year assessment results.
All right, thank you for having me. I was last here in winter sharing how our screening assessments were progressing, and we will be capping the year with how the year ended, and then also forecasting how we're using the results to prepare for next school year. As a reminder, screening assessments provide a standardized measure that we use in multiple ways. With our K-8 assessments, it tells us how students are doing at grade level expectations with a snapshot each time they participate. In grades 9 and 10, it snapshots their college and career readiness. All of that was covered in winter, so you will not hear about that area again. And then lastly, identify students who might be at risk of poor academic outcomes. These are the different assessments that we give when we screen our students. We have a STAR suite of assessments that assess students in early literacy and reading. We also have a literacy screener as dictated by the state per Act 20. And then finally, our math assessments. We'll start with reviewing our AIMSweb Plus data, and this is what was the assessment system that was selected by the state of Wisconsin to appease the Act 20 requirements. It's the Early Literacy Screener. We administer it for the first time this year to meet the full expectations of the law. When we gave it last year, there was a delayed launch for different reasons. So this is the first year that we have a full administration of the assessment. It is normed, so we can see how our students perform compared to other students nationwide, and it assesses the skills in which they need to become readers. One big outcome of giving this assessment is to determine what students are at risk, and every student that's deemed at risk, regardless of what point in the year, will receive a personalized reading plan where they will get extra assistance and monitoring to help them reach their reading goals. As I mentioned, AimsWeb Plus is normed. The table below shows the different national percentile rank ranges, which categorize them into 1 of 5 proficiency levels. The bottom 2 ranges, so the 24th percentile and below, are the scores that students would receive if they are deemed at risk per Act 20, and that will be the data shared tonight. As a summary, we'll start with 4K at risk. 4K at risk only is determined during spring testing, and there isn't an overall at risk. They determine it individually based off the 2 assessments they take. Letter word sound fluency, where 10% of the students were at risk, and then initial sounds were 18%. The students in 4K are only assessed for that predictability of at risk. They do not receive plans if they are at risk. As noted on the slide, once students enter kindergarten and continue through grade 3, that's when the personalized reading plans come into play. Below, you'll see a summary of grades K1, 2, and 3, and the percentage of students that were at risk in the final spring screening window. Pretty steadily and on average, we had about 20% of our students that were at risk at the end of the year. So each of those students received a personal reading plan to help address their deficit areas. All of those students' personal reading plans, if they remain enrolled with us, will begin again in fall. When we screen again in fall, we'll determine if they still need the plan, if any adjustments to the plan need to be made, or if they can be released or exited from their plans. So it will be continuous as there's no changes to the assessment this summer. This is a graphic that clusters fall, winter, and spring per grade level, showing what % of students were triggered at each screening window. Again, you can kind of see it was pretty steady throughout the year. We never, in any grade level or any window, had a big spike. It was very predictable, and many of the students who started the year with a PRP ended the year with a PRP, so they had continuous extra support throughout the school year. The screening and the PRPs only go through grade 3, and to exit a PRP, they have to meet that plan's goals, and they have to demonstrate proficiency on a certain section of the Wisconsin Forward state exam. So we're happy to report that 5 students did meet that exit criteria at the end of 3rd grade. So they're going into 4th grade with higher confidence, higher ability to be independent, successful readers. These 3rd graders are also one of the cohorts of students who have only received part of Act 20. Our current kids who just finished 1st grade are the first cohort that is going to get continuous years. So we're really excited to see the exits, even though they only had about a year and a half of the new practices under the law. Any questions on AimsWeb Plus before I switch assessments?
I have a quick question. How often will you present this to the board? Like, how often will we see the results?
Yeah, so typically I'll do a winter presentation, so you can kind of see mid-year, where are we,
So
fall to
similar
winter.
to the rest of the, okay.
Yeah, if you'd want a different frequency or report, we're open, but it typically follows the month after the screening closes, so it's pretty close to current info.
Perfect, thank you.
Also, you receive one more in fall when they release the state results. So you get 3 points in time where you're looking at assessment results. It's just that one
Yeah.
goes in fall.
So 1 formal for state and 2 internal local for screening.
So I see 5 students exited the PRP, and the other students either continue that assistance in grade 4, or how many of those kids maybe didn't move on to grade
Yeah,
4?
that's a great question. So the law and all things PRP required only go through grade 3. So any student who didn't exit, when they go to grade 4, they're going to fall into our normal MLSS, multi-level systems of support process. So any student who still has qualifying data, an ongoing need, they would be eligible for intervention services, in classroom, small group extra support, and that's what we've been doing as a district for years. They would just get back on that traditional path without the PRP stamp. If they qualify, they would just go back to a general intervention plan. All right, we'll move on to STAR. You have, as a board, heard about STAR for many, many years now. Again, we give this universally in grades K through 8 in the areas of early literacy and reading, as well as math. As a summary, here are our spring results. For early literacy, which is our kindergarten and first graders, we ended the year with 70% of our kiddos proficient or meeting that grade level benchmark, which is right in line with where they were in winter. Reading is given to our students in grades 2 through 8, where we had 66% meeting expectations. And then lastly, math is K through 8. And remember, this was the first year kindergartners took the math assessment because we plugged that hole in our system. And we finished the year with 66, or 2/3 of our students meeting those expectations. The reason we share the percentages of meeting expectations is all in relation to DPI's framework. If we hit 80%, that is their metric for what Tier 1 or universal success is, so we can see where we fall with that expectation and then progress towards closing that gap. We can further look at this data broken down by grade level. So here are the early literacy and reading assessment results together. Again, much like AimsWeb was displayed, each grade has 3 bars that shows where they went from fall to winter to spring in the amount of kiddos who were proficient, meeting benchmark, in relation to the horizontal target line of 80%. As you can see, our kindergarten had a tremendous year, which is great. That is very encouraging, given all things early literacy that the state and the districts have invested in. So it's very, very exciting. That would be less than 10 kids that we would need to move the needle on to hit that 80 target, which is just wonderful. Also in this graphic, I'd like to highlight grade 5. Grade 5 for literacy was in their first year of implementing their new curriculum resource, CKLA. And while the beginning and middle of the year was kind of no movement, they spiked at the end of the year, showing great gains in year 1, which isn't always expected, but very well received when we get it. So while there's a lot of good work happening, I definitely wanted to highlight those 2 grades and the successes they already found. Same design, however, this chart is now breaking down grade by grade the STAR math results. There is a variety of results. Every grade kind of tells a different story, but we do have multiple grades, especially in spring, who have very close numbers, again, to hitting that 80% target. So a very achievable gap to close. 6th grade, I'd like to highlight here. They too were one of the grades that was in implementation year 1 for the new secondary math resource. And they had little gains fall to winter, but then again had a nice spike, nearly closing the gap to that Tier 1 expectations in implementation year 1, which is really, really exciting. We this year, for the first time, have multiple grade levels at multiple schools that have reached that tier 1 success where their students, 80% of their students are meeting the expectation. So we saw that that literacy data for kindergarten was very strong. Fair Park's entire kindergarten team and Green Tree's entire kindergarten team all hit that 80 or exceeded it. Grade 3 at Jackson, they hit the 80% mark in literacy and math. And then lastly, grade 4 at McLean hit that expectation in math. So we're seeing really strong teams at that entire grade level coming together to get wonderful results. So it's great to have our own staff doing this where we can spread the good and highlight the successes that they're having. Last year, we re-benchmarked STAR with our grade level expectations so that it would be closer aligned to Wisconsin Forward, the state assessment. That way we could use STAR results to monitor and be predictive of Wisconsin Forward outcomes. So using last spring's Forward results for our grade 3 through 8 students, we saw that in the areas of literacy and reading, 64% of those students were meeting benchmarks. Many of the school improvement plans this year set a 5% goal to increase, and that's what's shown in the last column. In math, last year we were at 66%, which would set our goal to 71%. Always looking to improve as a whole to get closer to that 80%. The light blue columns in the middle are our fall, winter, and spring STAR data that shows how we started the year, mid-year, and ended the year as progress towards that goal. Now, while it won't be exact, you can see the final 2 columns at the STAR spring and how close or not close it is to the Wisconsin Forward goal. So in both areas, reading and math, we're within 2% predictability of our goal. We have the internal results of the Forward exam. We'll be sharing that with you in fall, but this just re-highlights that our screener is benchmarked very well in a way to be predictive of the Wisconsin Forward assessments. Speaking of us having the results and you guys don't, that's what we're doing right now. We are spending our summers, as always, digging into the data in an internal review. We've done it in a different couple of venues as a whole leadership team. We also are having individual meetings with each principal to do site-by-site kind of deeper digs into data. And then the principals this summer, come August, will bring their building leadership teams into the summer to contribute to that planning so that they're launching the school year with a lot of intentional actions to make their schools the best they can be. As Superintendent Wimmer mentioned before, in fall, it's typically been mid-October, the state will release all of the state assessment results that we took this spring, and I'll produce a report for the board so you can see how we did, how we're doing over time, as well as some information on comparable districts to see how we do compared to them. All that data will be used in the accountability report cards, which will be produced in November, and you'll get a full board report on that as well. Any questions?
I feel like I ask this every year, and I know you don't have an answer, and that's okay. But
Maybe I do this year. I'm just
probably
kidding,
not. What the heck goes on in 7th and 8th grade? Like every year we see either a decrease or a minimal slight. And so my point is that it seems like regardless of the metrics or the training materials or whatever we use, to me, it just reads that that's just an age group that's just going to be like that regardless. And I don't know how much academic support we can do to move that needle, because it doesn't seem like it matter, or like it's anything's gonna move it. You know what I'm saying?
There's been,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just
Go
gonna
ahead.
jump in on this one since
Yeah.
it's curriculum. Well, we have done a couple of things, and we are doing a couple of things. From the literacy point of view, we have a new resource that we're using this year. And we really feel like that rigor level is going to be increased, and we expect to see results there. From a math lens, we did put that new resource in place, but they've had several years of not having that level of rigor. So now they suddenly have this higher level. So with an implementation like this, I'm not terribly surprised to see where we landed with that, but we do hope for more. We have part of our student learning plan, we have things in place that we do need to alter, so we are not just leaving it there. And we don't
Yeah,
think it's just
yeah.
the age group.
Yeah, I just read that, again, this looks
Yes.
similar to what I've seen in years past. And so I
Yes.
don't know how much of that you just chalk up to that age group being that age group, or if there are tools, right, that we can utilize to help move the needle. So as you recognize that, as long as you're doing that, then I'm content.
Yes, and
So,
there are things we can do, so we're
great.
working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. We will move on to our next report, which is Curriculum Committee, and Melanie Ergot will provide a committee report.
All right, thank you. So the Curriculum Committee met on July 7th, and we reviewed several items that appear on tonight's agenda. The committee reviewed a number of annual procedural items that come before the board each year, including the Notice of Academic Standards, the curriculum cycle, and the district assessment calendar. The district at-risk plan did not require review as there were no changes. The committee is bringing several action items forward this evening. We reviewed resource adoption recommendations for K-5 music and 612 orchestra. The committee received an overview of the evaluation process, which included teacher review, vendor presentations, site visits, public review, and the final recommendations before you tonight. The committee also reviewed recommendations from our career and technical education programs to expand industry-recognized credentials, articulated credit opportunities with Moraine Park Technical College, and career pathway options across multiple program areas. This work is guided by a business and industry advisory committee and resulted in the 4 CTE action items on tonight's agenda. In addition, the committee received updates on career readiness, academic and career planning, and the counseling curriculum cycle, including next steps to further support students' academic and career development. Finally, the committee continued its review of the curriculum information that will be featured on the district's updated website. We shared feedback on the 3K through 5 curriculum pages and began reviewing the grades 6 through 12 content. This work will continue at future meetings. This concludes my report.
Thanks, Melanie. Any questions? Okay, next up is our construction report. So we'll welcome Tim Harder, Director of Facilities and Technology, to provide us with a construction report.
All right, good evening, board members. So since the last time I've been here, a couple of updates for you, and we'll bring some additional photos and potentially a video as we get closer with our work this summer. Down at Jackson Elementary School, if you drive past there, majority of the foundation work and the floor concrete is in. You'll actually start to see building come out of ground. So the first thing that has come and seen there is the elevator shaft being built up in masonry as we start that work, and steel will start to show up on site here the next couple weeks. So as we get to the end of summer, you'll start to see that structure rise out as you drive past there. At our smaller projects this summer up here in West Bend, we have site work going past at Green Tree right now. So what they're doing is they're laying underground stormwater and starting to lay out the areas of where you'll see the new driveway for the Green Tree parking lot. At Silverbrook and Badger, we have interior work being completed. They have started laying down the new floor in Badger's gym as part of our project there. So once that floor is done, striped, and clear coated, we'll also start with putting in the new bleachers in that space. And then heavily at Badger, the 2 areas that are receiving a lot of work are, we're repurposing some areas of the locker room. So that work is being done currently, along with updating some of those areas for ADA accessibility, and then a complete fire alarm redo there. So that is taking a lot of work behind the scenes. It's all new wiring. Every single room gets at least 1 new sensor, if not 2 in some cases. At Silverbrook, we're making great progress there. So we have 2 different interior projects happening. The area that is getting converted from the 5-6 building to kindergarten, so that project is going well. That project is the project that we know will carry into fall. because we don't need that wing of the building as we move 5th grade back this year to our elementary school. And then we are repurposing an area of the music area into a special education area. And so that progress is going really well. We actually just passed in-wall inspections today, so we'll start finishing up drywall. And then we have some outdoor work that's being completed. So doing very well at this time of the year, and hoping for not a lot of rain and maybe the heat could go away. So I'll answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll welcome Lenny Hansen, Assistant Superintendent, who will provide us a financial report.
Good evening. We have a few items that are in the financial report that you can dig into, but a couple of overview items. So we have our monthly fiscal performance review. So I'll scroll down here to the expense section. As you can see, we're running a little bit under pace in terms of what we've usually spent at this point in the year. But I also want to direct your attention to this graph down here. So here's where you see the last 5 years history, and you'll notice there's always a big jump in June. So what happens in June is teacher salaries for July and August technically count towards the prior fiscal year. So they get booked during that month. So this information is through May, but you will see that jump again. And what that's going to cause is a lot of these numbers to jump quite a bit. So these numbers end up a month later right around 100%. So there's a lot of things that book right at the end of the year in salaries and benefits, but also in things like purchase services. A lot of those are not paid towards until the end of the year. There's a lot of contracts that end up getting paid at the end of the year. So, but in general, in terms of where we typically see ourselves for pace of spending at this point this year, we're looking pretty good. Revenue, we see similar trends as well, which we have a much more jagged graph here because it really depends on when certain grant claims and things come in, and a lot of them come in at the end of the year, which is why you see that jump towards the end. So when we come back about a month from now with June's information, you'll see kind of everything is finally caught up as the end of the year bills all come due. From a cash flow perspective, we continue to be in the best position we've been in over the last 5 years, so that's definitely a positive. Our long compliance report is reaching its end. We have completed everything that we are required to do. This is not all of the district's compliance elements, I do want to point out. This is just that have to deal with school finance related. When you tie in student services and curriculum, we'd have many, many more pages as well. So there's a lot of work that goes on by some very capable and humble people in this building. Next item on here is just a brief update on a food service RFP. So information was shared with staff in June that the district is investigating if a food service management company would be an effective partner for operating our food service operation. We have communicated with all of our food service staff that we are investigating this option. There are no decisions made. We're just seeing if there are opportunities there for efficiency in the operations side. Our staff do a great job. We sell meals, all that sort of stuff. There's certain pressures that we deal with that larger companies have some more success with, food, managing food prices and things like that. When you're a smaller school district, you can have more challenges that way. So we are investigating because we have had some tougher years recently in terms on the financial side of food service. But again, not for lack of effort by the employees in that department who really do a great job. And we have a lot of people who have been very committed for a long time. And if we decide to look at any partner, that's been the number one thing we have told any potential food service company is they need to take care of our existing staff, which most companies are very eager to do because having a effective and eager and willing workforce is one of the hardest things to find in food service, and we have that already in spades. So we'll have an update to the board in the coming weeks about that process. Also put some information in here. July 1st always is when DPI releases its first estimate of how much state aid each school district will receive this year. Out of the 13 school districts between Washington and Ozaukee County, 10 of them, including the West Bend School District, are going to see a decrease in aid based on this estimate. We have accounted for this in our budgeting for many months. Based on the state aid formula, our forecasting has been projected this. All but 2 districts in Washington County, so 6 of the 8 are seeing a decrease. What happens here is this is related to that state budget that we talked about all last year, and how when the 25-27 state budget put no additional funds into the equalization aid pot, it made it likely that most school districts would receive less aid in the future, and that is what has happened. It happened last year, and then for the same reasons, we're going to see the same phenomenon this year. But I also want to say that the July 1st estimate is updated several times between now and October 15th when the final estimate comes in, so I'm not going to hang our hat too much on explaining this until we get some closer to the deadline when the firmest numbers will come out. Finally, there's just some information about year-end operations. Our auditor has begun our annual audit, which is a many-month process, and that is also leading us to the time of year where we develop the budget amendment, which comes before the board, where we really look at actual spending for the year and then bring forth a revised budget. That'll be coming to the board in a couple of weeks. What that revised budget allows us to do is it helps with the auditing process, first of all, when your budget is close to what actuals are. Second, it positions us to then make the appropriately planned transfers to Fund 46 and Fund 73 to ensure that we're meeting all of our OPEB obligations for retirement, as well as our facility investment obligations that have been budgeted for. So that amendment will be coming soon. That's everything in this month's financial report, and I'll answer any questions.
Just got a quick question. If we move forward with the food service management, do the employees remain employees of the district, or would they, be taken over by the company?
No, what happens is they become employees of the contracted service company. When we put out the RFP, it was the number one thing we said.
Yep.
We said,
Yeah, I
these
see that.
people need to be taken care of, but that means taken care of as employees of the food service management
Okay,
company.
I just want to make sure I understood that.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, last on the reports list is our superintendent's report, and Superintendent Jen Wimmer will provide that report.
School supplies are going to start entering stores if they're not already, right along with the Halloween things. I think they're arriving too. So it's right around the corner. So I just like to remind everyone, check the website for supply lists, picture order forms, different meet and greet dates, and more. We'll continue to add more information as it comes in, and we'll continue to remind families directly through our newsletters and other methods. Also, on our website is the end-of-year version of the Vantage Point. That's a quarterly publication that just provides highlights, so it's kind of a nice end-of-year look back. So I'd encourage everyone to take a few minutes to check that out. I know we've honored June, and she's attained some recognition going through a few board member things, so we included that in there. And then this week, families will start receiving the annual back-to-school registration and kind of those directions. They'll go into an online portal and do that. So back to school is around the corner. Girls golf was also recognized. The Golf Coaches Association of Wisconsin recently announced that the Co-op of West Bend High School girls golf team earned the Team Academic All-State Award. So it recognizes high school golf teams with the highest team grade point averages. The 2025 team earned the Bronze Level Award, meaning it had an average cumulative GPA of 3.25 to 3.49. So congratulations to those athletes for that academic recognition. That concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. All right, moving on to our discussion item. We have one discussion item this evening, which is the Employee Benefits Program. So Lenny Hansen, Assistant Superintendent, will discuss the Employee Benefits Program.
All right, good evening. When we last met last month, I introduced our employee benefits picture and promised that we'd return with some specific recommendations based on that, and tonight I'm here to deliver on that commitment. Here is the roadmap for tonight. First, a brief reminder of our goals and our competitive position, and then our two key areas for recommendations, which are pharmacy coverage and health insurance. I want to first lead off with this slide before we get to recommendations. You've seen this many times before. The principles here guide our strategic financial planning. We're closing the gap towards our balanced budget, shifting to a multi-year focus and operating from a position of strength. As I've said many times, the reason we address costs now in a meaningful way and measured way is precisely so we can avoid larger and more painful cuts in the future. As we follow that financial path, we want to ensure every recommendation presented is measured against these 4 goals, which have been shared previously with the board. Financial sustainability is number 1, a long-term budgetary path we can maintain, followed by compensation leadership. We want to remain a leader in total compensation, meaning salary and benefits together. Market competitiveness, meaning we want to be able to keep pace with rising wage trends. And staff retention. We want to stay within the typical range of our area while continuing to remain a leader in keeping our people here in West Bend. So I'm going to return to these goals at the end so we can check our work against them. So just a quick reminder of the foundation we're working from that you've seen some of these slides before, so I'll go very quickly, but we are operating from a genuine position of strength in a lot of ways when it comes to total compensation and staff retention. So for example, our teacher retention rate last year was 97.4%, and we have had 7 straight years where our retention rate was above both the regional and state average. Our teacher salaries outpace the county average by several $1,000s, and our compensation model gives teachers more control over how they grow their pay than any other comparable district in the county. You can see that advantage at every level here. We lead at the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile across the county by roughly anywhere from $4,000 to $6,700. And on health insurance, our most common family premium this year is $127 a month employee premium. That's the lowest cost exposure in the county. So now let's discuss some recommendations, and we'll begin with things related to pharmacy coverage. This is the first place we'll be recommending some adjustments, so I want to explain that carefully. Pharmacy is the fastest growing health insurance cost that we face. Some employees take medications that can cost thousands or actually even tens of thousands of dollars per script or per month. These expensive drugs drive the large annual increase in pharmacy costs. In fact, about 2% of the claims that we have in pharmacy are what drive roughly half of our pharmacy expenses. That concentration is exactly why careful management matters. It's important that employees have access to these medications in an affordable way. Poor oversight by a pharmacy benefit manager can cause drug prices to double or worse. And the way cost sharing is structured has evolved a great deal in recent years, which is why we're taking a look at this. We ran a full request for proposal or RFP process, and our current provider is OptumRx, and they did bid. They are active at least through December of 2026. If there were any change, it wouldn't take effect until January 1st of 2027. We also want you to know we did not go through or have not been going through this process alone. The process has been supported by our benefits broker, a pharmacy benefits specialist firm, and an attorney who specializes in this area. We received 10 proposals, which have been narrowed to 3 finalists, and we conducted interviews and been going through an in-depth analysis. We'll bring a specific vendor recommendation within the next month to the board. Alongside that, we're recommending a couple adjustments to our pharmacy copay structure. Our current structure has not really kept pace with the innovations that are already pretty widely used in both the public and private sectors. To put it in perspective, 12% of the drugs used in 2025 were not generic drugs. The not generic drugs, that other 12%, are what's really driving cost, and that's what we really got to look at. So any structure we adopt has to do 2 things. It has to help manage the cost of high-cost drugs and ensure a fair cost share between frequent and infrequent users of our pharmacy benefits. Here's where we are today. We use flat copays of $10 for generics, $30 for brand name, and $45 for specialty drugs. The challenge is that flat dollar copays are much less common today than they were many years ago when this structure was put in place. That's especially true on brand name and specialty drugs, which are precisely the drugs that drive almost all of our pharmacy costs. Here is what we are proposing for 2027. So first of all, generic drugs would not change at all. They stay at $10. And again, that means for 88% of the prescriptions our employees use, there's no change. For brand name drugs, the copay would be a minimum of $30, which is the current copay for those drugs. However, we would implement what is a very widely used strategy for these higher cost drugs. It would be an 80% coinsurance above that minimum up to a certain maximum cost per fill. So we're still finalizing what that maximum would be. Your amount there would only exceed $30 if that meant the total cost exceeded what that 80% would be. And we'll explain that a little bit more later on. Specialty drugs would follow the same pattern with a $45 minimum, which is the same as today's copay for those drugs. The 80% coinsurance structure would apply there as well if those drugs, if 20% of those drug costs exceeded $45. The key point is the maximum cost per fill, which is listed here. No single prescription can be allowed to become unaffordable because the employee's cost would be capped. We're currently working with the potential PBM partners to identify what would be an appropriate maximum to put in place there to protect employee costs. On cost stability, 88% of the prescriptions filled in 2025 would see no change at all under this recommendation. Most employees see no change under the proposed minimums of $10, $30, and $45 because those amounts are equal to the exact same copays we have today. So when we have been analyzed this, the different pharmacy benefit vendors recommended coinsurance anywhere from 50 to 80%, as it encourages the use of effective alternative drugs and drug management programs. Our recommendation is to follow an 80% coinsurance model, which matches the coinsurance percentage on our medical insurance. This means the district covers 80% of the cost of these high-cost drugs and the employee covers the other 20%. But remember, as a safeguard, we protect employees by also putting a maximum there that cannot exceed. We're still finalizing the recommended maximum copay amounts, and we're doing so very carefully. We're working with the pharmacy partners and comparing against other districts and against industry norms. The guiding rule is that employee cost must be manageable. Employees cannot be asked to pay several $100s to fill a prescription. Next, I'm going to discuss health insurance from the medical insurance side, since we've already covered pharmacy. So again, I'm going to briefly start from where I have before in this discussion, which is with our positions of strength, and then move on to the recommendations. So today, our employees on the most popular plan we have pay just 5.5% of the health insurance costs through their premium, whereas the county norm is 12% amongst those other school districts. Our employees carry far less of the premium burden than teachers in other districts in the region. Our recommendations tonight will ensure that that remains the case. On plan design, our family out-of-pocket maximum is $7,500 on our most common plan against a county norm of $8,500. Our plan protects employees better than the norm, and that too will remain the case under tonight's recommendations. This is the table you saw last month, and it remains the anchor for tonight. If you look at that first column, that's the total compensation value for a teacher in the district. West Bend is first in the county at a total compensation value of $97,000, ahead of every other district. The margin by which we lead everyone is what allows us to make responsible adjustments, but still remain the leader in compensation. So please keep this in mind as I walk through our recommendations. Before I get to those recommendations, I want to review a brief reminder of the strategies that are available in the market and in use by other school districts, which I covered last month. We discussed 4 broad strategies that we see in the market. First was switching to an ICHRA plan, where the school district would actually stop providing insurance and instead give a partial reimbursement to buy coverage on the ACA market. As I mentioned last month, there's actually a district that directly borders the West Bend School District that uses this approach. Second, we discussed higher out-of-pocket costs as a strategy, where the county maximum can run as high as $16,000 a month or a year compared with the West Bend School District's $7,500. Third, we considered higher employee premiums, which many districts use as a strategy. Our $127 monthly family premium sits well below the county norm of $254 per month. And finally, we discussed spousal coverage strategies, where coverage is limited for higher or priced higher for spouses who have alternative coverage available through their own employer. Our recommendations tonight draw thoughtfully from this menu. So with that in context, here are the recommendations. They accomplish our goal of financial sustainability while ensuring the health plan remains more valuable than those seen in other school districts throughout the county, ensuring we can continue to recruit and retain staff at a rate better than seen throughout the region. So let me begin with what the administration is not recommending. We are not recommending a shift to an ICHRA plan. Under tonight's proposal, West Bend would continue to offer real health insurance to our employees, not merely a reimbursement. Instead, we have 4 core recommendations for 2027. First, no change in those out-of-pocket costs, the deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums, while indexing them to the ACA standard going forward. Second, an adjustment to the premium cost share, while continuing to offer greater value and greater coverage than the county norm. Third, a stipend that would offset the first 6 months of any premium increase employees might see in 2027. And fourth, a strategic shift of eligible spouses to the family savings plan. So now let's talk about each one in order. Recommendation 1 relates to out-of-pocket costs, meaning those deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums. We recommend no change to out-of-pocket costs for 2027. Going forward, after that, we would recommend indexing these costs against the ACA standard. Right now, our out-of-pocket maximum is only 35% of what that ACA maximum is. We recommend maintaining that percentage going forward, but by indexing it, it would rise gradually over the years as the ACA continues to see inflation in the health insurance market. Basically, as the ACA standard changes from one year to the next, the out-of-pocket costs in our plan would respond, but proportionally. Even with indexing, West Bend would continue to have the most valuable plan in our county in 2027, our $7,500 family out-of-pocket maximum against the current county norm of $8,500. Recommendation number 2 is a shift in how we determine employee premiums. We recommend shifting from our current flat dollar approach to a percentage cost share approach. The percentage would stay the same year after year, but adapt to increases in the actual cost over time. We offer 2 plans right now. Plan 2 is our baseline plan. It covers about 2/3 of the staff, and it has a lower premium with higher out-of-pocket costs. Plan 1 covers the other 1/3 of the staff and is the inverse. It has a higher premium and lower out-of-pocket costs. In working with our broker, the standard actuarial practice that their actuarial team uses is to set the cost share based on the most popular plan first. Then the actuary team goes and sets the cost share for the other plan based on its actuarial value so that the 2 plans remain fair relative to one another. So we'll start with Plan 2 because it's what most of our staff use. For Plan 2, we recommend a 90% district and 10% employee cost share. I want to remind everyone that 10% share remains more valuable than the county norm of 12%. For reference, the 2027 total monthly cost of coverage is for employee and employer together combined is expected to be $681 for single, and you can see the other amounts below. Our most common plan is Plan 2 Family, and the combined cost, employer and employee, is $2,423 per month. For Plan 1, the actuary sets the share based on that Plan 2 baseline level to ensure that the 2 plans are balanced in their value to employees. So that actuarial analysis works out to an 82% district share and 18% employee cost share for Plan 1. That reflects that Plan 1 carries lower out-of-pocket costs and less potential exposure to employees. The 2027 total monthly cost of coverage on Plan 1 can be seen here. Again, these are projected. We'll have final numbers very soon from the broker's actuarial team for 2027. Here's what this all means on an employee's paycheck on a monthly basis. Again, let's go to Plan 2, the most popular plan. The employee's share would be $68 for single per month, $150 for employee plus one, and $243 for a family. On Plan 1, you can see the employer shares here. You can also see the district share that the district pays for that coverage per month as well. These are increases, and I don't want to minimize that, but we want to remind everyone that it still keeps our plan far more valuable than that county norm and ensures we can remain the leader in total compensation. Our next recommendation is very important because it is designed to help employees ease the transition into these premiums. We recommend easing the transition to the new cost share by providing every affected employee a one-time stipend that offsets the premium increase for the first 6 months of 2027. That would cover what their increase is from January to June. Many employees signed their contracts in June before the following year's health insurance structure was finalized. So providing this temporary stipend recognizes that timing and gives employees an opportunity to adjust gradually rather than experiencing the full increase immediately on January 1st. This represents a significant investment by the district and its employees. It's not an approach commonly taken by employers when health insurance costs increase, but we believe it reflects our commitment to supporting our staff while responsibly transitioning to a more financially sustainable health plan approach. Our final recommendation involves spouse coverage. I want to explain our existing family savings program first because it's a key to why our approach is effective and cost beneficial for our employees. So the Family Savings Plan is a program currently offered by the district. It's available to anyone eligible on our health plan who leaves to be covered on another company's health insurance plan, which is usually the spouse's health insurance coverage. It's available to employees, spouses, and children. Anyone who participates in the Family Savings Plan has every single dollar of their out-of-pocket costs paid for by the West Bend School District through a reimbursement. It's basically the equivalent of having a zero deductible health insurance plan, $0 deductible health insurance plan. On top of that, the district also pays the employee a $100 per month premium differential for every adult that moves to the Family Savings Plan. So if both a spouse and employee leave the district's insurance and move to the Family Savings Plan, that employee actually receives $2,400 a year from the district to help them pay for their premiums on their spouse's employer's health plan. So with that in mind, here is our recommendation. We would recommend implementing a spousal carve-out for any spouse who is eligible for insurance through their own employer. If you don't have insurance as a spouse available through another employer, then this would not apply to you. In a spousal carve-out, any spouse who has coverage offered through their employer must take that coverage and then declines coverage from the West Bend School District. However, the employee and children are able to stay on the district's plan. The spouse and anyone else who leaves our plan becomes eligible for the Family Savings Plan, meaning as they leave our plan, moving forward, all of their out-of-pocket costs are covered by the school district. A spousal carve-out is a common strategy in the insurance market, but the Family Savings Plan turns our strategy into a major upgrade over the typical spousal carve-out approach. It guarantees that every member of the family both can obtain coverage, and it means employees and children do not have to move to a spouse's insurance if they don't want to. We're simply asking spouses who have coverage available to use it. And we are making that an attractive choice rather than a penalty by paying all of their out-of-pocket costs and contributing towards their premium. That's a lot of information, so let's review the 4 core recommendations for January 1st, 2027. First is no change in the out-of-pocket costs for 2027 and then indexing them to that ACA standard, which would still make our plan more valuable than the county norm. The second recommendation is to adjust the premium cost share, keeping it still more valuable than the county norm. Third is providing that stipend to all affected employees that offsets the first 6 months of any premium increase they might experience. And fourth is a shift of eligible spouses to the family savings plan through a spousal carve-out. So let me close by returning to the 4 goals that I opened with, because everything tonight was measured against them. 1, financial sustainability. These changes put us on a maintainable path. Compensation leadership. As I've said many times tonight, we remain first in the county in total compensation under these recommendations. Third, market competitiveness. These changes still allow us to keep pace with trends rather than reacting to them. And finally, retention. We stay more valuable with our benefits package than is the norm in our area on every measure, while still protecting the plan and our staff, the plan that our staff value. If you recall, a few years ago in 2023, when we first started work on health insurance, we said we would remain a leader in total compensation when that work began. As we showed, both at the last meeting and today, we did. We remained that total compensation leader. These recommendations are designed to honor that same commitment and keep that streak going. As we look forward, in a moment, I'll take questions from the board about the recommendations. We'll then spend time communicating with staff, just as we've done throughout the spring and summer as the discussion has progressed. These recommendations would then come forward to the board for action at another meeting, which would set the stage for a real wide-scale effort to educate our staff about the adjustments and how they can select the plan and options that are best for their family before open enrollment happens in November. And then the adjustments would take place effective January 1st. A lot of information there, so I'm happy to answer questions that you have.
All right. I'll just go to your summary slide and I'll go through it as well. So number 39, yeah. So overall, I mean, I'll just say as also a public employee, this is a very rich and generous, rollout, I would say, for our employees. And so again, I'm not saying anything bad against it, but I hope that they appreciate how much kind of cushion we're putting to the landing of this. So just kind of run through the things here. Not changing any out-of-pocket costs right away, I think is attractive, being that obviously there's inflationary costs and other things that continue to roll out. Adjusting the premium costs, I just quickly looked up mine again, and this is different than the private sector ladies beside me. But also as a public employee, I meant like $325 a month is what my family premium is. And again, I recognize that I have the Rolls Royce of plans through the state, but just so you have that comparison as a fellow public employee, I think that puts this into perspective that we still have very competitive plan options for our employees.
Yeah, because our most common plan, which is that Plan 2 family, which would compare to yours, would be $243 per month, and I think you just said $325, right?
Correct,
So
correct.
again, these are real increases, but we're
Yep.
really trying to maintain that competitiveness and leadership.
And then just to go on here, number 3 here, that we're offsetting the first 6 months of premium increases. I think that's very generous. I mean, if I was coming up with this, I don't know if I would offer that, but the fact that we are and we can afford to do that, again, I think says a lot about how we take care of our people. And then that shift with the family savings plans and then catching any of the out-of-pockets, I guess that's where my only question is, do we fear that that's a slippery slope? I mean, is there anything that we're not thinking of that's like, oh my God, we're going to take on the burden of all these out-of-pocket costs? Or just truly the benefits outweigh the costs?
Well, the truth is, so your out-of-pocket costs that we have to reimburse are capped by whatever the deductibles are on that spouse's health plan, right? And they all have a cap because the federal government requires that they not exceed a certain level, right? So, a reasonable concern, right? Like, wow, what if that person racks up $8,000 by themselves in out-of-pocket costs? Well, what that means in reality, if someone does hit that out-of-pocket maximum, they most likely incurred many tens of thousands of dollars of actual health care. They probably had a surgery or some major medical situation that actually cost the plan $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, maybe 6 figures, right? So if they were on the plan would be covering that large amount. So it's very, especially on a wide scale when you're talking about many employees and really kind of the law of averages, be very unlikely for us to experience kind of a loss on this front. This is where the family savings plan is actually more advantageous than something like just a simple cash in lieu. So, cash in lieu used to be very common, 10, 15 years ago in education where, hey, if you're not in the plan, we just give you a check for a certain amount of money. But that check was paid whether that person was a user of healthcare or not a user of healthcare, right? With Family Savings Plan, we are paying those claims. So if you don't have claims, we're not out much, right? So it's a little bit more measured approach, but still very protective of the employee. And in fact, can be more valuable than the old traditional cash in lieu. If a district was offering, say, $4 or $5 grand in cash in lieu, well, it's great, you get that check. However, cash in lieu is taxed. Second, your out-of-pocket might be $8,000, so it's not even covering what your out-of-pocket is on another plan. Whereas here, no matter what your out-of-pocket is, you might have one that has the absolute ACA maximum. It could be, $9,000 a year that you have to pay. You'll pay zero no matter what. And even as the ACA raises those possible maximums, you'll still pay $0.
Yep. So I say all that to say, again, I'll just tie it up with a bow here, that as, again, a public employee, as an administrator who carries out these kind of things, this is still a very attractive offer to our employees. We're definitely taking good care of them. I guess the only feedback I would make sure that we do is then when we market this to employees, I mean, I get what you were selling here, but I would make sure we lay really clear the why, right? The why is that what we currently have is unsustainable, right? That the cost of doing so is just not realistically we're not gonna be able to continue the same path that we're on. And so, yep, it sucks for everybody, but this is the way that we can correct it. And I think we have a really attractive way of doing such. So kudos to you and staff, and thank you.
Agree. Thanks. I know a lot of work went into this, and it's great to have all the information behind it, and I appreciate everything that you guys have put into this. Any other questions? Okay. Then we are going to move on to our action items, and we've got quite a lengthy list here, so I am going to turn it over to Superintendent Wimmer.
Just give me that whole section tonight. So the heavy lift.
Anything on the screen or no?
No, nothing.
Okay.
So the heavy lift was really done by two committees, your curriculum committee and your policy committee. So I'm going to go through and highlight just those pieces, and then I'll bring them forward as two potential motions for you. So the curriculum committee met. Melanie had given you a report. You know and understand what a comprehensive process selecting a new resource is. So those first two items are a K-5 music resource adoption, as well as a grade 6-12 orchestra resource adoption. What we have is outdated. These are recommendations from staff, fully vetted by public, and all incorporated into our budget for the year ahead. So you have two resource adoptions. Then the next four items are connected with career and technical education. Again, not just guided by our staff and those pieces, but Brenda O'Brien also convenes an advisory council made up of business and industry partners, so their recommendations well from that, as well as our partner in Moraine Park or other secondary institutions that give credit. So the next four are specific changes to CTE programs that include expanding articulated credit options, expanding the number of credentials, and the way funding moves through from outside sources. These are attended to in that manner, which is, again, presented at committee and there. So if anyone has any questions about any of those items, I could certainly take those now. Otherwise, again, I know that they've been gone through. Otherwise, I would seek a motion from a board member to approve the curriculum items, which include the K-5 music resource adoption, the 6-12 orchestra adoption, as well as the 4 CTE program revisions.
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, anyone opposed?
Yeah.
Sorry. No? Okay. Motion carries.
Okay. And the next group are a series of policies. These are your third readings across the board. So they were vetted not just by committee, but you've seen them multiple times. There's been no changes, no other questions, no follow-up since the last time you saw them. We just didn't have a full group to provide action last time. So with that, I would seek a motion to approve the policy revisions, which includes removals, revisions, and additions as presented. That takes care of 528.1 and all the 300 series changes as listed.
So moved again.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, that we will then move on to our future agenda items, which we will start with our board meeting calendar. On our board meeting calendar, we've got some future meetings, including the July 27th, 2026 regular board meeting, August 4th, 2026 curriculum meeting at 4:30. August 10th, 2026 is a regular board meeting at 5:30. And on August 24th is also a regular board meeting at 5:30. All of these are at the Education Service Center, but we will post if there's any changes.
Did I miss a reschedule of the policy meeting? Just making sure.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right.
We're good.
We're good. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got one a little later. We took care of all of our slate.
Just making sure.
Okay, are there any items for follow-up and communication? Hearing none, we have an item that's appropriate for discussion in executive session. I move to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and to take any action, if necessary, based on its discussion, namely compensation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks. I have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session. Any additional discussion? Okay, this requires a roll call vote, so I will call the roll. Ms. Lang is yes. Mrs. Kruger?
Yes.
Ms. Ergod? Yes. Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. And now the board will adjourn into executive session.